Hello, it's 9:30 here in Vancouver, so let's begin our webinar. My name is Shane Moore from the Faculty of Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies, and it's great to be able to welcome you here today to this webinar from the Faculty of Forestry on the Master of International Forestry. We've got a really great agenda for you today. We're going to talk about the faculty and also take a close look at this program. If you have any questions today, we want to make sure that we answer those. So if you do have any questions, please post them into the Q&A and we'll use the chat to share links with you. So if we have any links to share, we'll put those in the chat. But if you have any questions for us, please use the Q&A. That would be great. Before we begin, I do just want to take a moment to acknowledge that we're broadcasting today from the traditional ancestral territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. And as we're guests on this land, it's an honor to be able to live here, to learn, and to work on these lands. And what I've just spoken there is called a land acknowledgement. For those of you who haven't heard a land acknowledgement before, you will often hear them spoken at UBC, and that's because UBC Vancouver is located on the traditional territory of the Musqueam. And the Musqueam are one of the First Nations of Canada. So I know that you will be doing your research right now. You'll be researching UBC, the Faculty of Forestry, and its programs. But I encourage you, alongside that research, to also do some research into the history of this land, and particularly the Musqueam First Nation on whose traditional territory UBC Vancouver is located. So to help you with that, I'll post a couple of links into the chat shortly. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over now to Professor Sunderland, who's going to give us an overview of the faculty and then take a deeper dive into this program. Thanks. Over to you.
Thank you, Shane. So, excuse me, I'm Terry Sutherland. I'm Professor of Tropical Forestry here at UBC. I'm also Director of the Masters of International Forestry program, but also Director of our International Engagement and Cooperation. So work basically in bringing together all of our international programs under a single umbrella. So the MIF program, the Masters of International Forestry, fits very nicely in them. So the Faculty of Forestry here at UBC is one of the largest faculties focused on forestry in North America. And we often come out in the top 3 globally in terms of metrics, in terms of forestry and its relation to land use. And we have a large number of programs focusing on graduate studies, and we have proportionally the largest number of graduate students anywhere on campus at UBC. Next slide, please. So we are focusing now on the Master of International Forestry. Uniquely in North America, it's a relatively short but very intensive 10-month course. It's basically focused on 8 months of learning at UBC, which consists of lectures, field trips, and other forms of experiential learning, which I think Peter will go into in more detail. And then we have 2 months of directed studies, placements, or projects. And what that means is it's a strong focus on vocational learning on one stream, and on the other stream could be more focused on research. A lot of our MIF students have gone to do further graduate studies and find directed studies a nice pathway into moving to a PhD, for example. Next slide, please.
Great. Hi, my name is Peter Wood, and I'm a lecturer and the coordinator of the MIF program. And I've just started this year in May, and really enjoying so far the program. And I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of what's going to be taught within the MIF program. So overall, MIF program is about understanding how forests and forestry are an international issue. Overall, over the course of the last few years, forests have really come into focus as being absolutely key to meeting some of the biggest global challenges we have, including climate change, biodiversity loss, intersection with Indigenous rights, human rights. And so overall, the MIF program is designed to prepare graduates to participate in the quite rich and thriving job market that exists for people that are prepared to tackle these challenges. And so in this intensive program, you're going to learn how to grapple with some of these problems. You're going to receive the training you need to be skilled to undertake some of the these challenges. And that requires a real sort of integrated approach. So what you'll see as I go over the courses that are involved, you'll see that a lot of these are designed to be complementary of each other, and they fit together like pieces in a puzzle, so that on the whole we have this very comprehensive package of courses that prepare you for that job market. Next slide. So as Terry mentioned, we really try to balance the in-class learning with experiential learning, so field trips, a lot of opportunity to actually be in the forest and to speak with practitioners, to really understand what it looks like to address these issues in the field. We have a regular guest lecture series where we bring in the best minds on this topic to come and talk to us. And through our networks that both Terry and I and the various instructors in the program have, we have quite a rich network of people we can draw upon to bring into the classroom. And I think that really provides a rich learning experience. We also emphasize professional development. So we have regular check-ins with our recent MIF graduates who have gone on to do some really interesting things, and we bring them into the classroom. We have young professionals come and talk to us about what it was like for them to start a career, and looking for tips and tricks to pass along to our participants in the MIF program, so they can get a leg up in terms of finding that perfect job. And then also these intangible skills such as leadership development and conflict resolution, project management. These are all things that most jobs that are related to this degree require, and we do some preparation around those skills as well. Next slide, please. So here you have an overview of the program as a whole, and as you can see, it's broken down into a series of modules that kind of group similar topics together. So module 1 is in term 1 is a broad overview of forests and society, and this sets the stage for overall how humans and society relate to forests, what makes forests an international issue, really setting the context for all the other courses that come, and it serves as a place where we can look at various countries' efforts to address and grapple with sustainability and forest management, as well as looking at some efforts at cooperation. In tandem with that, module 2 runs through the second term, and that looks specifically at two different courses. First one addressing social, community, and indigenous forestry. So in recent decades, we've seen an absolute breakthrough in terms of our understanding of the relationship between indigenous peoples and forests. We've seen a resurgence and empowerment of local communities to really take control of their forests. So we look at sort of a comparative approach, looking at countries around the world, including locally here in BC. We've got a lot of very interesting things happening within Indigenous rights, forestry, and community forestry, but also from countries around the world. And currently that's taught by Dr. Jeanette Balkin, and it's a really wonderful course. Second is the Natural Resources Planning course, taught by Terry Sutherland this term, and that takes sort of a landscape approach to understanding how forest management is conducted at the landscape level, taking a real international approach and comparative approach, again looking at how this is done in many different countries, as well as linking that towards, how cooperation on various issues, such as meeting the Sustainable Development Goals, is achieved. In the second term, we switched to looking at economics, finance, and business. So in module 3, it's really looking sort of at that international level, how forest products constitute a major portion of the world's economy, how local businesses engage in that, international dynamics of trade, supply chains, and all of this has huge repercussions for forest policy. So that takes an approach of a very intensive month by month. So January is totally focused on forest business enterprise, and February moving on to natural resource economics and finance. And now leading on from there, we go into March. It actually segues very nicely into our international governance and policy course, Forestry 553, which is a course that I teach. And that course really addresses how has the world adapted to understanding how forestry and forests are an issue of international concern, looking at how governments have attempted to cooperate to address some of these issues that intersect with forests, such as climate change, biodiversity. So this is an area that I consider my area of expertise. I've worked in this area for about 20 years. In different capacities, and I'm hoping to be able to draw upon my work at the United Nations Forum on Forests, my work with various international NGOs such as Global Witness that look at the relationship between trade, forest governance, climate, human rights, and a number of other different experiences. And looking at the final month in April, we address international forestry institutions, diplomacy, and negotiations. So this is really looking at why is international forest governance the way it is, looking at the negotiations at things like conferences of the parties, or COPs, whether it be climate, biodiversity, within the FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, looking at the big picture of international regime negotiation and institutions that really forms the way that the world deals with forests as an international issue. So this is an area I'm also very, very interested in, and have been working in and around for about 20 years. I've been to about 50 or 60 different major forest-related world summits, and we also have other instructors with a great deal of experience in environmental diplomacy, and we do a really interesting role-playing exercise where we get the students to really enact what it would be like to represent a stakeholder or a country within sort of like a mock United Nations type negotiation related to forests. So this is really intended to prepare students for that type of international work. In parallel to all of these courses is module 5. You can see running up and down the side there. And this is actually one of my favorite parts of the program so far. And this is a Thursday afternoon session that we reserve to address what we call loosely topics in international forestry. And this constitutes of 3 different types of activity. The first is we reflect and connect on the week as a whole, and we come together and we reflect on what did we learn in all of our individual courses, and we connect the dots between what the different instructors are teaching, because this is all very well put together ultimately as a pieces in a puzzle. So that's the session where we make sense of all of this, and we share our thoughts on what we're learning. Secondly, we connect it to current events. So people bring in, issues that they've seen in the news, whether it be, climate change related issues, forest fires. We have really rich discussions about how our course connects with current events. And thirdly, we have guest speakers come in that are professionals in the field that can talk to us about what they are currently working on. We get them to talk a bit about how they get started in their career, and they impart advice to our students about how to get their own career in international forestry going. So that's a really nice part of the course that complements all of the other courses. And finally, we have the summer session that runs May through July, and that's where students undertake a directed study or a placement or internship with an organization. And so we'll be coaching the students throughout the year in preparation for undertaking that directed study or placement. And we work really hard to make sure that is a good fit. And that is something that the students undertake during the summer, and then they write a report on what was accomplished. Overall, within this program, our emphasis is having something to show at the end of this. So Terry and I are really focusing on having something tangible that students can be proud of at the end. And so we're looking for a very strong report or strong public presentation. The students will have something to show, and the organizations that receive the internships are proud of the work that's done at the end of that. If it's a directed study, that is set up well for directing towards publication, ideally, or at least having some kind of a public document that the student can be proud of and can put on their CV. So that's a bit of an overview of the program. We'll be having some Q&A afterwards, but perhaps we can move on to the next slide at this point. And over to Terry.
So we've talked about the placements, directed studies, and we have now 2 pathways. In response to student feedback from previous courses, there seems to be sort of 2 major routes that student careers seem to take. And one is the more vocational, entering the world of professional forestry along the lines that Peter's just described, and others go to a more academic pathway focused on PhD studies. And the types of placements include FAO in Italy, the UN offices in Geneva, and various other research sites as well throughout the tropics, with using the connections that Peter mentioned earlier that we have as a network. And for directed studies, that's very much focused on a particular thesis-based topic, and working with a faculty member here at UBC. Next slide, please. And just to show, this is 2 students at the UN offices in Geneva who completed their placements there in the summer 2 years ago. And on the right is a field site in Indonesia where 4 students undertook various field-based research projects. Next slide, please. And in general, we have a lot of testimonials from students who've basically recognized how important the MIF has been in developing their own careers. Veronica was a fantastic student, and she's now working in exactly what she said she was going to work in: wildlife protection and forest restoration. And a lot of our students have directed their their careers into their aspirational hopes at the beginning of the MIF, and found it to be a good pathway to fulfill their career ambitions. Next slide, please. Over to you.
Thank you, Terry. Hi, everyone. Good morning from Vancouver. My name's Meng, and I'm the Admission and Admin Coordinator for the MIF program. My role here is to support you in your process of application, and it can be anything from answering and clarifying admission requirements to troubleshooting document submission after you applied. So you can consider me as your first stop to ask any questions. And today I will give a brief overview of the general admission requirements and what it looks like to apply to our program. And just keep in mind, this will be a general kind of overview style, because a lot of things would still depend on individual applicant background, such as credential, language, and citizenship. So to start with, the first requirement we'll be looking at when you apply to MIF would be the academic background. And usually we are looking for applicants with academic background in science, social science, or related discipline with an adequate grounding in natural resource conservation and management. And the second one would be the GPA. And again, GPA would very much depend on which institution you are from. And but generally speaking, we're looking for an academic equivalent of 4-year bachelor degree with a minimum average in the B+ range, so somewhat equivalent to 76% at UBC. And lastly, for students who are coming from international background, there may be a requirement on presenting English language proficiency, and that can be done by taking tests. And some of the tests are listed here on the slide, such as TOEFL, IELTS, and CAIL, and I will put in a slide for the full list of acceptable tests. And a quick reminder that the application actually already opened as of October 1st. And for this intake, we'll be closing the application on February 15th. And based on previous experience with other applicants, it is strongly recommended that you start working on your application early on, so that leaves you sufficient time to get all the documents ready, and also leave your referee sufficient time to submit their part of recommendation for you. Next slide, please. And so with all the admission requirement inside, how to actually proceed to application. And it is actually a super simple process, and the link is online on our website, and I will share in the chat later as well. And what you have to do is go into that link and just follow through the prompts and entering all the questions we've asked. We've set up questionnaire, which we ask all the questions you need to answer, and we will also prompt you which document you need to upload during your application. And at the end of the application process, you'll be asked to pay for an application fee. And once everything's ready, the application is considered complete. And in terms of documentation, we'll be asking for copies of your official transcript. And just a special note here, documents such as grade records are not considered transcript. So if you have any questions regarding what documents required and when documents accepted, please contact me, and I'll be happy to walk you through that. In addition to the transcript, we'll also be looking for 3 referees, and at least one of them should be academic reference. And again, if you're required to prove English language proficiency, you will also be prompted to upload and let your official language test. And finally, there is the completed MIF questionnaire, a letter of intent, and as well as your CV. Next slide, please. So we're still kind of early in the application process, but it's never too late to start. So if you go through any questions, and if you come across any questions at all, feel free to schedule an advising appointment with us. We have one-on-one Zoom live advising sessions, as well as you can email us, and we'll be answering as soon as possible. And back to you, Shane.
Thanks, Monk. That was great, and thanks to Terry and Peter for that really great overview of the program. So what we're going to do now is answer some of your questions. if you have any questions for us that have come up, please post them in the Q&A and we'll answer those for you now. To begin with, I'm going to start with some of the questions that were submitted as part of the registration for the program. We had quite a few questions come up. One of them was about prerequisites and background for the program. So is there are there certain prereqs that are needed, and are there particular degrees or programs that people come to this program from?
I can try to take on that, and Peter and Terry, if you want to add in. So as I've mentioned before, we are looking for a background related to academic science, social science, or natural resource conservation. So anything like that would work. And we've also seen applicants from geography background, and it really depends on what you study in that degree, and this would be a good reference point. And something else I want to add is that we have a current students page on our website, which is super helpful. And I would encourage our applicants to take a look on that page and see who our current students are and what their backgrounds are. And that can also provide additional information.
I think it's also important to point out that we don't focus solely on educational attributes. That the course was designed as a mid-career professional sort of change of career type of course, and so people who have come maybe with bags and bags of international experience, it can come sometimes in lieu of having the absolute sort of educational requirements listed on the website. So there is some flexibility on an individual basis, basically.
That's great. Okay, thanks for that. The next question here is, can you expand on the ways that Indigenous forest governance is taught in the program? Is the program strongly centered in this?
I can tackle this. So I would say there's, in addition to the one course that is specifically addressing Indigenous forestry and relationship to forests, it's also a cross-cutting theme that I think every one of the modules addresses in some way. So while we have Dr. Jeanette Balkin, who's an expert in Indigenous forestry, and she originally comes from Guyana, but she really is an expert in Indigenous and community forestry globally. She also has an in-depth knowledge of the local context. And as I mentioned, BC and Canada as a whole is a real hotbed of activity in terms of Indigenous rights, Indigenous forestry, Indigenous forest enterprises, and provides a really interesting local case study to draw upon. For example, just 2 weeks ago, we brought the class up to Squamish, a town about an hour north of Vancouver, and the students had a full day out there looking at Indigenous-led forest management, and we're walked through, how Indigenous peoples have taken control of that forest tenure area, which was absolutely fascinating to see. And then in the afternoon, we went to a local manufacturing operation, and where they were able to see, how those, forest products are made locally. So again, that's just sort of a more applied example. We have in-class teachings. We also try to ground it in that experiential learning. And then, for example, one of our former MIF students, an MIF graduate, has gone on to work for the Squamish Nation on land use planning, in that area, which we're really proud of. And that student came back to talk to our students in September and really set us up nicely to get the most out of that field trip. So just as sort of an applied example, for more abstract position, within the courses that I'm teaching next term, we will address, how at the international level, how Indigenous peoples engage with issues such as climate change, biodiversity. We know that Indigenous peoples have control of about lands that represent 80% or more of the biodiversity in the world, and so we really emphasize how that form of governance is going to be absolutely consequential for climate, for biodiversity. So I think it's a combination really of having that sort of grounded, applied, very local approach, as well as big picture in reflecting on how Indigenous peoples intersect with international forestry as a whole.
That's really great to hear. Thanks for all of that insight, Peter. And I guess I think what I'm hearing as well is that, in terms of globally where you could study forestry, I think BC is one of the places where it's a pretty interesting environment, pretty interesting context in which to study the subject.
Yeah. Just to add to that, I mean, one of the things that surprised me when I first moved to BC 5 years ago is all the issues I've been working in international forestry in Southeast Asia and West Africa play out very much here in BC as well. So it is a microcosm of forestry and forestry issues and the challenges of sustainably managing forests. And even in a country as advanced in terms of economic advancement, governance systems in place, if we can't do it right in Canada, what hope have we got to do it in countries that may be not so well resourced? So some of those challenges play out very much here in Canada as well. And it's a nice palette, if you like, for us to paint the picture of international forestry issues that we encounter globally.
Just leading on from that, the next question was about careers and the types of jobs that people go into after the program. I know we've touched on this a little bit already, but would you be able to expand on the types of jobs that people are moving into? And also, is there any support in terms of making that transition? Are there alumni networks or community networks that they can tap into?
There is an alumni network in which we're trying to develop that further. One of the observations made by the current students is that they feel it would be useful to have on the MIF website a few more testimonials from former students, and also a sort of an analysis of where people end up. And we are currently working with CTLT on that, and we're doing a whole review of the program for the last 5 years to exactly track where people go to from here. Bearing in mind there are often immigration issues as well, so the opportunity to work in international forestry may be not as pertinent for many students. But it's a whole range, and a lot of the jobs that people have actually secured internationally have come from placements or the internships they've undertaken through the course as well. So that's been an important conduit for employment. And Peter and I and other instructors on the course have wide and extensive networks of institutions we work with, and try and match the right people with the right institutions. And obviously that comes with reputational issues as well, but it's very gratifying to see a student coming to the MIF in September and then moving through their internships and then actually securing a very good international job later on. And we've seen students go all over the world basically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And just to add to that, maybe I would say one of the things that has allowed us to play such a strong role is the ratio of instructors, course coordinators to students. It's a very very overall, I would say, a very low ratio, allowing us quite a bit of time to spend with individual students in that sort of coaching role. And I've really enjoyed that so far, being able to listen to the hopes and aspirations of the individual students, really having the time to be able to imagine together what that best placement or best directed study would look like for them. And we try to start that very early on in the program, so that by the time we get to spring and summer, that placement or directed study is all set up. And again, it's because of that low ratio of students to instructors that we're able to provide that.
Yeah, I think that's one of the great things about the program, is that it feels like the students really do have a lot of face time with instructors and faculty members. Like how many people would typically be on the program each year?
It's typically sort of in the teens, I would say. Currently, we have 13, and in other years, it's been maybe a little bit more than that, or a little bit lower. But I would say typically in the sort of mid-teens would be on average.
Mm-hmm. That's great. It's a great opportunity to have such a nice small cohort. But of course, even though the MIF program may be a smaller group, they'd be part of a group of professional programs, and part of a bigger faculty. Is there much connection between students in each of the professional programs across those programs?
Yes, in fact, we have every 2 weeks we have a meetup, which we just had last night, which is a really nice social occasion where all the professional masters students, and so that's the programs that include the Masters in Sustainable Forest Management, Urban Forestry, and MGEM, Geoinformatics and Environmental Management. So we, collectively have, I think, towards about 40 or 50 students, and we regularly provide opportunities to integrate and collaborate between those programs, which is really nice. And the faculty as a whole really emphasizes breaking down those sort of silos to allow for a lot of integration. We regularly have events within the faculty, like lunch seminars and other events that all students are welcome and invited to. Beyond that, we have access to an entire campus full of events. For example, in the Institute for Resource and Environmental Studies, IRES, regularly has a speaker series that would be relevant to us, or the School of Public Policy. This is one of the best parts of being on campus here, is just having access to all these different disciplines and faculties that are relevant, as well as the student body, very rich networks of clubs. We're starting up again the International Forestry Students Association, for example, something that is near and dear to my heart, because that's how I started my career as within the international forestry regime, going to Geneva to present a paper. That was because of this International Forestry Students Association. So I really like the way that in addition to the program itself, the MIF program, it is supported and complemented by these other aspects of campus life.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that a big advantage of being part of UBC there, joining the Faculty of Forestry, there's a great community, but you'd also be part of quite a large graduate school community at UBC. So we have well over 10,000 graduate students at UBC, and I think almost 40% of them are from outside of Canada. So a whole range of different people, and they're all researching and studying a whole variety of different topics. So they're very exciting and a pretty dynamic community to be a part of. There was a question that was posted in the registration about scholarships, about funding. I think I know the answer to this one because it's a shorter professional program. But do you offer any scholarships, entrance scholarships to the program?
At present, there aren't any formal scholarships. Previously, the MasterCard Foundation did provide some scholarships for African scholars in particular. That program is currently in the process of being renewed, and we're hoping for the 2024 intake that those scholarships will be in place, at least a handful of those. But generally, no, unfortunately, this is something that Peter and I, as relatively new to the course, are very focused on, and we'll try and really get a situation in place where there are scholarships for students who are deserving of academic support.
Yeah, that'll be great. And I will say, you know, in terms of graduate programs, it would be it is quite unusual to get funding for a shorter, you know, professional program like this. Like as Terry mentioned earlier, like this program has been developed for professionals, and it's been developed to get you back into the workplace, you know, reskilled, ready to take the next opportunity as quickly as possible. So generally, you know, those types of programs don't offer funding in the same way as say research programs would. But thank you for clarifying that. Let me see if there's any other questions that we could touch on here. Yeah, I think we've covered them. I mean, I'm just wondering whether you'd be able just to talk about you know, what sort of an average day or an average week would look like on the program. I know in some of our other professional masters sessions, the question has come up on whether it's possible to work part-time or volunteer outside of the program. You know, we know this is an intensive program, but what would an average day, an average week look like? And is it possible to do take those part-time opportunities outside of the program?
The actual contact time each week is about 16 hours, I think. Peter, is that about right?
Yes.
And one thing we try and maintain is we don't end load the syllabus for each semester, if you know what I mean. So basically, we spread assignments across the entire semester so that the workload is relatively consistent across the semester, rather than having end of semester exams where there's a lot of pressure at the end of the semester and it's relatively quiet for the main part of the period of teaching. So 16 hours a week contact time with assignments that are spread over that. It's probably about 24 hours a week, roughly, I would estimate. I know that a number of our students in the past have worked part-time or done volunteer work, and they've managed to balance that completely fine, as far as I understand.
Mm-hmm.
Great to hear.
Yeah.
Okay, great. We just have a couple of minutes left, so if you do have any final questions, you know, do feel free to post them in the Q&A, and we can answer them before we wrap up. I'm just wondering if there was anything else the panel would like to say, just to wrap things up. You know, feel free to add anything that you haven't covered already.
I would just add in here that you know, encourage participants to look at the variety of jobs that are popping up in this field. You know, by looking at LinkedIn, please feel free to add myself and Terry to LinkedIn. We regularly post you know, jobs that are relevant here, because I think what people see is there really is a vibrant, exciting landscape of employment that is relevant to this field, whether it be through international institutions and international organizations, as well as domestic organizations that work on international issues. And I really invite people to dig into that and really imagine what their career might look like, how the Masters of International Forestry might fit into that picture, and really feel absolutely welcome to reach out to myself and or Terry. We'd be glad to meet with you to talk to you about your own situation and your own aspirations and how MIF might be a good fit.
Thanks, Peter. Thank you also to Terry, to Mung. This was a really great session, really insightful. Thanks for the program overview. This session, we will be emailing a recording of this out to everybody who registered. So if you missed part of it, or if you want to watch it again, there'll be a recording sent shortly. I believe as well in time, it will also be available on the MIF program page on the website. So if you're watching this on a recorded version, still do feel that you can reach out. You can still reach out. And thanks for learning more about the program. We'll say goodbye for now, and we'll hope to see you at UBC Vancouver soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.